What a month, dear YouTube friends. Today we are in a new video, friends. Yesterday, the new season of Battlegrounds Season 27 came out, and as always, I'm going to bring you the video of the best attackers and best defenders for this season. And we are also going to see a kind of deck that more or less, well, this one with this victory track is okay. So let's first read the notes they have this season in the victory track. And it has the stunning performance as long as the stop stunning of a mutant attacker is removed from the same purification or scavenging is or is avoided by skill accuracy. Instead, it inflicts a passive stun that lasts 3 seconds. Modifying skill accuracy does not affect this stun if the attacker activates an over attack while the opponent is passively stunned by stun. If the pause, the attacker receives an attack boost of more than 300 for the duration of the super attack. We are already seeing that this is beginning. Season to include them in the Dark Phoenix saga. Therefore, in this case, we are going to have to be using mutant and mystical characters. Okay, and that with this first node, because the attackers that we are going to be using this season are going to be based. Okay? Then you have a cleansing sconce. Whenever either character obtains a bar of helpless power, they have 2 charges of passive scrubbing effect for 10 seconds. Therefore, if we leave disadvantages, they will always be purified. That he gets a power bar, any of the characters is worth both us and the opponents. Then he has the hostile terrain. Using the same type of super attack twice in a row grants the attacker an explosion charge delayed for 5 seconds, which can be eliminated by launching a strong attack, and if the explosion expires the attacker, reaction is 50% increased. In other words, we are going to have to rotate between the super attacks, and if not, well, we can throw a strong blow to prevent it from exploding. So yes, we are going to go for the best attackers for this season. 27 Battlegrounds on the victory track. Okay, friends, here we have the best attackers that I have more or less seen to bring to this season of victory track, because they are characters that are going to be based on mutants and mystics. Therefore, they are more focused on that class, although I have also included some class that may be working for us, such as Titanic, that you are already seeing out there, that is of the scientific class, okay? But in reality, we have a large base of mutants and mystics in these attackers. For America Chavez, friends, this is going to go here, because with the strong blow, we are going to be doing passive stun. And with that passive stun, apart throwing super attack, because we are going to pose it and we are going to be gaining even more damage. Therefore, America Chavez becomes a pretty good character. I saw another character that in itself is a beast and can also work for us both in attack and defense. Therefore, he is a character to take into account and put in the deck. Okay, Colosso, in this case, he has dropped a little, although he is mutant, and let's remember that we are going to be changing that stun by that passive stun. And apart from that, the more stop we do with Colossus, the more damage we are going to do. It works quite well for us. What happens is that it is a little slow to develop for these trips, but it can be a very good option. We have Dazzler, another very top character, who in fact has analysis on the channel in case you want to stop by and see him. Dazzler is a very good character, which in the end is totally worth taking to this season, because he does totally absurd damage, and on top of that we put that passive stun on him, so that's it. He already has it with his own ability, because it may be working very well for us. Deadpool X-Force works pretty well as well. Another mutant character in this case works well because it leaves disadvantages, but we would have to see how this life character that leaves disadvantages would work. Therefore, the defending character may be debugging them. In this case, Dr. Doom could also perfectly go to Go Field, because let's remember that with the hard blow he leaves that passive stun, therefore poses that passive stun, and we also generate 300 attack force. So Dr. Don's gonna leak. In fact, I think they are one of the few 6 stars we have on these attackers. I dominate another one that goes up completely. On top of that, we leave an absolute force. Imagining throwing a super attack with that passive stun can literally be a nuclear bomb. There we have Dust. We leave it here that we also do passive stunning with the character, because he is a mutant. He has that dust on him that may be helping us in defense. Therefore, it is also good for attack. So very good option to wear it gentle. Another that goes up completely. Let's remember that the only thing we have to take into account is not reaching those 12 loads of strength or muscle. I think it was called. We also analyzed it in the channel to avoid that advantageous self-harm, and that's it. You are going to have another character who has totally absurd damage. And crazy, we have Hood, a character who in this case goes down a little, because let's remember that his final strength depends on the explosion. This one isn't as good as Dr. Doom for this node, so but it still has totally absurd damage. Isofine, another pretty good character, because let's remember that they are going to give us characters that are going to generate a lot of advantages, and let's remember that Isofine has finally found a place where she is going to shine, and in this case it is in this season of Battle Broth, so we leave it here. Jim Gray, another character who is a mutant who in the end does passive stun, and who also has his defense characteristic, has been due to those reverse controls, so in attack he also has a lot of strength, because we have been able to see him in Kaban's videos and others. Very few people can get the character, but if you have it so much, 6 or 7, it is worth taking it to Gothier Juggernaut. In this case it goes a little low. In this case Juggernaut in the end, by not generating that passive attraction, since it may be making the fight a little dull, but we already know that Juggernaut is a weapon of total mass destruction. Kusala completely goes up for us because this character in the end cancels the opponent's improvements, therefore we are going to be developing damage through disadvantages, which is good because in the end we do not depend on the forces. The super attack, although in this case I think we are going to lower it a little, we have Mr. Sinister to remember that his gameplay is stop on a hard hit, stop on a hard hit, keep on a hard hit to win those bleeding disadvantages, but I think it can work quite well thanks to that passive stun that we are going to be leaving on the opponent, so in this case it goes up. Oslock in this case may be working for us, okay? Are we going to leave it at semi? Let's remember that this character can be used for both attack and defense, therefore he will remain semi. Satra, another character who in this case is going to be used, has totally massive damage. Don't misunderstand me, but I think there are better characters to bring to the attacker deck, such as Samsport can also be if the character is already a weapon of mass destruction in itself, well more so with this node that increases with the passive stop of the opponent's super attacks. Therefore Samsport is worth Titania, a character who is no longer mutant or mystical, but who still always it will develop its strength in attack. Classic Storm, more of the same, more up, same as Pyramid Storm X. These two characters are a weapon of mass destruction of 2.1 totally absurd damage. PMX Storm with passive stuns already in its normal character kit. But with the passive disadvantage, we are going to do totally absurd damage. Werewolf may also be suggesting a lot for these fights, although it is not going to be my preferred option. White, yes, because let's remember the speed he has. This character achieves that accumulation of massive power to be able to do damage through super attacks. The only thing you have to take into account is not to repeat the super attack, because we can have that delayed explosion. And for the last weekend, that may also be working for us this season, so I would give the attackers, let's go directly for the defenders. And we're already with the friendly defenders. If we start with Anilu, it will always be a Toothic. He is a character that activates the unstoppable, so he stays on a saber. We have Anman, which is the first time we see him here as a defender, because he takes away that one with that deflection that has that attack force that you can have, therefore turning him into a Gothier. Then we have Future Man, more of the same. This character is always going to be a top defender. We have Arcade that is also going to help us a lot in defense thanks to that. The automatic block that Armin has alone is also another piece of character that is not the automatic block that has that damage that he has due to disintegration, that there is almost no one immune to that disintegration. We have Tom Amigos, who has always been a quite Gothier character as such in defense, but in this case he drops a little because we remember that we are going to be facing him with mutant characters, therefore that damage reverberation still exists, but that ability to remove that passive stun is no longer there. Then lower its power a little bit. In this case, Bishop does continue to maintain quite strong Bulsa, and however unlike Atuma, and that later we will have Core, that we have him here, that we are going to leave him already in semi, which happens the same as Atuma. Well, Bulsa, although he has literally passive stops, well, we are also going to be doing that with that quite strong damage. In defense, we have the Sentinel, who has quite good defense, therefore this node suits him quite well. So we leave it for Ghostier. We have Domino, who serves us as an attacker. As a defender, Dust, more of the same, a totally brutal defender who on top of that makes the phone still due to her animations. We have Evonimado, a character who is also quite good in defense, who may be bothering us because he may be taking away the advantages that our mutants are obtaining. Enchanter is another piece of character, as always a very good character and one that can be bothering us a lot in defense. Jim Gray, apart from working both in attack and defense, because in defense due to its inverted controls that it has, it may be bothering you a lot. Therefore, if you have 6 stars, because the 7-star one is not at the moment, because it has not even the Titanic came out, nothing unless it touched you on the glass, because it is totally worth wearing it. Jessica Jones in this case goes down a little, she becomes unusable, the defense is still a character to take into account. Killmonger happens more of the same thing with Mako and Toma, a character at the end that we face them as mutants because it won't be so easy to take it to the Kindle. More of the same thing goes up because it is a character that on top of it makes generation art, etc. active, rooted, and apart from taking away the makes your advantages last much less. Lamole, another character that is going to work quite well for us because mutants are not characterized by bleeding. Therefore, Lamole is going to make the fight slower, therefore scratch a few seconds more. Master of the same thing happens to the resemblance then to Unman and to Unman of the future. In the end, it is a character that diverts you and that makes the critical blows well not so strong. Therefore, scratch a few seconds, Manzing more of the same, another piece of defensive character thanks to the same thing we have said. They have a limit of damage. A child that you can do in defense, therefore scratch a few seconds, Osloud as always. He is a piece of character that deserves to be on any defender and attacker tier list. Photon. Another very good character in defense that you can wear, and on top of that you can also wear as an attacker, although I haven't put it in because I don't consider it a node for her. Red Skull, or as always a character that thanks to those armor you will be doing less damage. And here it is very important to highlight that the technological characters that we have already included a few more Red Skulls, because in the end they are direct counters of the mutants, that in the end they are going to be putting you as more of the same snake attackers. A pretty top defender who in this case does not benefit from the node or anything like that, but you are a very fearsome defender. Terax in this case goes to Semi, a character that should always be feared as long as you have him with a very good uniqueness. Thanos Daedalus, more of the same, another defensive character that is very very good. Tomante Pyramid X, maybe the same happens to the Adman of the future, Adman Master and Manzing, that the derived has defense due to the soul, therefore any blow that deflects you means that you are going to be scratching your voice for a few seconds. In this case it works quite well, defenseless, that we are going to lower it a little. Warlock, finally he goes to Gauthier because he is a technological character that is going to take a lot of power away from the mutants. And finally Weapon X itself, which is always a pretty crude defender. So friends, in this way would the best attackers and defenders remain that can be brought into this fight. And friends, because in this way what would the best defenders and the best attackers give for this season? Well friends, be lucky this season, and especially because the awards have dived, so good luck. I hope you liked the video, and if for whatever reason I forgot a character, leave it in the comments. So friends, I hope you liked the video. You suggest you are not there, and see you in other videos. Bye bye.